Glowing red eyes, an unmasculine voice, he reads too fast and likes old comic book stories, he edits poorly, he mashes.
Many are strange, the stories the sea hides, but none more frightful than the tale of a murderous phantom. Imprisoned for more than a century, his release spread a pall of terror. In 1821, the blind fog wraps to Newfoundland banks and aboard an old whaling ship out of New Bedford. This is where that terror began. Hello and welcome to this episode of Murder Incorporated. This is the 7th episode of our program. In this episode, we proudly bring you a timeless classic in horror comics called Phantom of the Seas. This comes to us from the pages of Adventures into the Unknown, Issue 2, published in November of 1948. It was published by the American Comics Group. It is a classic and rare. This is an independent production. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, donate, and visit our merchandise store. Every little bit helps. Our story starts. A man is saying, "This voyage, it's been a nightmare of cruelty. If Captain Wolfson lays a hand to me, I'll bury a knife in him, so help me. Here he comes now, lad. Don't give him an excuse to beat ye again." The captain pointed at the seaman, saying, "I ordered you aloft, you young whelp. Get up that mast, or I'll lash you to it." The seaman answered, with a knife in his hand, saying, "I'll not climb to my death. I've stood all I can from you." The seaman was trim and fit, had red hair, and was young. The captain punched the boy with all his might, saying, "Try to knife me, will you? Take that." The captain was tall, older, bearded, and built like a house. The captain ordered an old seaman, "String him up by the thumbs and give him 50 lashes, then chain him in the brig. He'll hang for this." The old seaman thought to himself, "Wolfson's a maniac. He's inviting mutiny, but I'm afraid to cross him." And with his cruel rage appeased, Wolfson retires to his cabin. A small weak lamp illuminates the cabin. It is fairly sparse, but for bed and desk, books, and a sailing ship in a bottle lying upon that desk. He looks at the latter, stroking his beard. "My ship in a bottle," he considers. "I am bound to it, and it is bound to me. It is flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone." Captain Wolfson whispers as he glares at the ship in a bottle, "I did not dream, when I carved it, that it would share my destiny. It is a magic talisman, and it has brought me luck. But I could not survive its destruction. I must take care to guard it with my life." And later, as night shadows the deck, a group of his men are plotting mutiny, waiting for him. "It's nor murder to throttle a mad dog. When we have stopped his breath, we'll fling him into the sea." Another whispers, "Here he comes." A blonde seaman drops a rope around the captain's neck to strangle him. Another seaman stumbles upon the plot, saying, "Stop! Woe to our ship if his brutal spirit comes back from the sea. We will all die." But the deed was already done, and the blonde replied, "Get out of my way, you superstitious fool." "Orfeo is no fool," another interjected. "All his life he has fought the black evil of the undead. We must listen to him." Orfeo said, "Get the little ship, Wolfson's talisman. I will send Wolfson's wicked spirit into the bottle." This was done with the ship in a bottle in his hands and Wolfson's corpse lying face up beside him. Orfeo committed a frightful invocation. The remaining spirit of the murdered Captain Wolfson started to rise from his ghastly corpse's chest. Orfeo chanted, "Dead man's ghost, in all your rage flow forth, a bottle is your cage." The blonde seaman who had murdered the captain was witness to the event. He whimpered, "Holy Hannah, look!" The spirit finished rising from the captain's corpse and then twisted itself as a glowing white mist into the bottle, and Orfeo corked it triumphantly. Orfeo ordered, "Dead man, stay in the bottle. Little ship, little ghost ship, bottled tight till someday someone free you to grow and kill." Next, it is 1948. It is now 127 years later, and a summer cruise takes Stephen Knowles and his family around the tip of Cape Cod in their small motor yacht. Eventually, they're walking up a crooked lane to an antique shop. His daughter is 8, keeps her blonde hair in pigtails, and quickly takes a liking to something best left untouched. She points, saying, "Look, a sailing ship in a bottle. I bet if Bobby tried to get it out, he'd break it all to pieces." Bobby was 6 and red-haired like his father. He smiles and looks at the sailing ship in awe. His sister holds it up, saying, "Mama, that's you." Her mother looks closely at the miniature of a lovely brunette that was carved onto the bow, as perhaps a dragon might have been if it were a Viking longboat. Her mother says, "She means that wooden figurehead, Stephen. It does look like me." As the four walk back to their small yacht, the father and husband suggests, "The image of my wife on an old whaling ship." While they say most of these ships were christened by beautiful women, maybe that wooden girl was one of your ancestors, Joan. The little girl asks, "You bought it for me, didn't you, Daddy?" That night, aboard Stephen's yacht, his small son decided to sneak out onto the deck with the bottle to uncork it. "Betty said I couldn't get the ship out. Smarty, I'll show her." He dropped the bottle to the deck when the glowing white mist began to escape. "Oh," he screamed, "something's coming out of it. Something cold and white. Jeepers!" The haggard and ghostly form of the long-dead Captain Wolfson now stood upon the deck, looking down on the boy. The boy screamed for help. "The boy freed me," the ghost mumbled, "but I cannot let him live to tell anyone." The boy ran as he screamed, "Mom, help!" Safe in his parents' cabin, Bobby meets with disbelief. His father says, "It's natural for a scared kid to turn to his mother, I suppose. But when I was a kid, I tried to stand on my own feet." His wife told her husband as she hugged the boy, "Stephen, he thought he saw something horrible. He's frightened out of his wits." Bobby cried, "I did see it, Mom. I did. I did." Later in their room, his sister told him, "I believe you, Bobby. Honest, I'm just as scared as you are." She was staring at the ship in a bottle. It was again corked, and it was sitting on a dresser a few feet away. Bobby exclaimed, "Who says I'm scared? I went on deck and got the bottle, didn't I?" Shortly afterwards, his sister was asleep. He sat in the darkness, watching her. He could not sleep. As the terrible ghost of Captain Wolfson approached him, he was looking at his sister instead, saying, "What was that? Did you hear something? Betty." And in their parents' cabin, their mother heard the scream, "Stephen, Stephen, wake up, the children." They hear little Betty scream from the children's room, "Help, Mama, it's after Bobby." Stephen is on his feet with a small pistol in his hand and dashing for the door. He says, "There must be a maniac on board. Stay back, Joan. I'll take care of him." He arrives in the children's bedroom quickly. They are huddled together on the far side of the room. Standing over them is the ghastly ghost of Captain Wolfson. Stephen exclaims, "Merciful heavens, it's not human!" The ghostly captain quickly turns on Stephen and lunges. Stephen fires 2 shots into its chest. "Can't stop it! Bullets go right through it!" Suddenly, the ghost turns away. All hear the pilot in the wheelhouse yelling, "Ship to starboard! It's going to ram us!" The captain stutters, "Ship going to ram." Within the ghost of the dead captain, an old seaman's instinct stirs faintly. Rushing to the wheelhouse, he tries to take control. "Fool," the ghost of Captain Wolfson says. "Give me that wheel. I'll save us." The apparition grunts, saying, "It's too late." The two ships collide. The family got off their yacht, escaping the ghost and the quickly sinking vessel. They all had jumped into the water below and were being rescued by an emergency launch sent by the other ship. "Easy, mister," one of the rescuers told Stephen as he pulled him aboard. "Everything's okay. We've got your wife and kids, and we'll pick up your crew. Easy now." Little Betty was saying, "I saved my ship, Mama." She was clinging to the ship in a bottle. And they watched their yacht go under the water. In a stateroom on the steamship, the children were asleep and their parents were quietly whispering. Stephen said, "We've a lot to be thankful for. It takes a tragedy like this to make a man realize that a yacht doesn't rate compared to a couple of sleepy-eyed kids." Joan replied, "I'm still frightened, Stephen. That ghastly thing that attacked you wasn't an illusion." And the depraved ghost of Captain Wolfson was still nearby. He seemed to congratulate himself, actually. He was telling himself, "Another ship. The memory of my old days returns. I shall make myself master here." In the coming hours, a demented killing spree took place. The twisted ghost of Captain Wolfson moved from corridor to corridor and room to room, committing atrocity after atrocity. Both crew and passengers died under his evil and powerful hands. Strangulation was his perverse specialty. And later, the captain of the cruise ship was both fascinated and concerned by the story of Stephen and his family, when otherwise he would have believed it insanity. The captain held the ship in a bottle before him, saying, "You say your son saw the specter come out of this bottle? I've sailed the seas too long not to believe in black magic. A ghost in a bottle, though. It's outrageous." "We've got to get that ghost back into the bottle," the cruise ship captain said. "I think I can do it with a living lure. Your wife resembles that wooden figurehead. Maybe if she cradles the bottled ship in her arms, the specter will be drawn back." The cruise ship captain looked Stephen and his wife in the eyes, asking, "Willing to take the risk? You'll have to repeat certain words, but I'll tell you what to say." Joan said, "Of course I'll do it." Stephen said, "No, she won't. I'll not have her risk her life." Later that night, in the hour preceding dawn, Joan crept out of bed in her slinky nightgown. She told herself, "The children are in deadly danger, so long as that foul specter is free to kill. I'm going through with it." She took the ship in a bottle out onto the lonely dark deck and began to chant a long and laborious ancient melody, which she ended with, "Ship that bears my image, sail the deep once more. Return, O ghost, unto your ship, and leave it nevermore." The ghastly ghost, Captain Wolfson, was drawn to her and was watching from a distance. He giggled and considered to himself, "She thinks I am deceived by her likeness to that figurehead. Thinks to trap me, does she?" The ghost Captain Wolfson attacked Joan. "Give me that bottle, vixen. I'll kill you. Kill you." Joan screamed and tried to get away. "Stephen, help!" she screamed. Stephen quickly appeared. Little Betty was behind him. Stephen yelled, "Fight him off, Joan! I'll get him!" As the cruel spirit turns on Stephen, Betty gets an idea, fetching up the bottle that her mother had dropped. Betty said, "I'll throw the little ship into the sea. Maybe the ghost will be drowned if he tries to get it back." The ghost captain was too late and screamed in fury, "My ship! I must save it. If it sinks, I'll perish too." When the ghost dived into the sea, its ephemeral body exploded into flame, a painful and none too brief agony, which all heard, until he was no more. Stephen, Joan, and Betty watched, and Stephen was the only one to say anything. Merciful heavens! As they continued to watch the dire spectacle fall into nothingness, Stephen finally said, "And the captain must go down with his ship, though it sinks to Hades."